Active Green Aging by Bonnie Dickson.
Mhm.
Stockholm, Berlin, London, Copenhagen, Singapore. Names of some of the most sought after tourist locations in the world, but they aren't just tourist locations. They are some of the leading places for sustainability in the world.
Mhm.
City planners don't have the luxury of being able to focus exclusively on streets and buildings anymore and must consider and plan around green spaces. Singapore, for instance, has a national agenda on
Mhm.
sustainable development. Its plan includes planting 1 million more trees and a declared mission to create a green, livable, and sustainable home for Singaporeans, calling itself a city in nature. Some of its goals are to expand the nature park network, intensify nature in gardens and parks, and restore nature into the urban landscape. This kind of intensive planning often flies in the face of the need to counteract the impact of urban sprawl from a term known as desensification, meaning the work to increase urban populations while shrinking urban footprints. It's especially heartening that some of the most recognized cities for sustainable living are some of the most heavily populated, because if they can do it, we all can do it. Urban green spaces play a larger role than just being a place to unwind at the end of a workday. Green spaces are those parks, walking paths, waterfronts, and other places that provide people with the space to relax, exercise, and socialize. People who spend as little as 2 hours a week in those spaces experience improved health, both mental and physical, regardless of ethnicity, gender, neighborhood, or social status. As scientists have delved deeper into the connection between human health and our natural environment, city planning has begun to incorporate green spaces as part of a future initiatives for residents. A growing number of studies have found that living near a green space extends lives, improves cognitive function, and contributes to creativity. The more immersive the experience, the more benefits enjoyed. Because many simply cannot afford to seek out further flung options, we must bring those options closer to home. Research that suggests that green spaces and gardens also have the potential to lower crime, including burglary, arson, vandalism, and even violent offenses. And finally, urban green spaces may make cities more habitable simply because they contribute to urban heat reduction, thus making cities healthier for people already suffering from health conditions. A study compiled by the British medical journal Lancet attributed the global increases in temperature to human-induced factors such as the increase in the heat index. According to Lancet, heat-related deaths for individuals 65 and older have increased by 85% as compared to the decade between 1990 and 2000. As desensification and sustainability seem in direct opposition to each other, there's also a time factor and, of course, a cost factor. It could be argued that there has never been a time when cost was not a factor. And while that is certainly true, it's difficult to promote an idea whose final benefit will be decades in the making. One way to offset costs is by incorporating more volunteers into the solution. Urban green spaces are a tool for fighting social isolation by promoting social interaction and community building. One way to access that tool is to become part of the creation of the environment. Older adults already have a huge stake in the planning process because maintaining a healthy lifestyle for older adults requires the availability, proximity, and regular use of urban green spaces. Participating in the restorative work required to bring those benefits to light has personal benefits in that volunteers not only receive a social and health benefit from the work, but also are more likely to become politically active. It's beneficial to address the elephant in the room. That is the idea that a human being begins to lose purpose, ability, and responsibility with age. It's still a widespread and acceptable premise that older people are helpless victims, that they are passive receiver of other people's good graces. The people that fought for civil and women's rights know how to disagree with the government, how to fight for a cause, and how to speak out for what they believe. Those people should not be sidelined by a belief that you lose relevance when you hit a certain decade of age. Volunteering for, speaking up about, and participating in fixing the hot mess that is our current situation requires talent, drive, and a determination that can be healthy and replenishing work for people who already have a lifetime experience and the desire and skill to impart it to future generations. Organizations such as Third Act are empowering people 16 up to enact real change as a very real and last-ditch effort to continue what was started in the 50s and 60s and to leave lasting legacies. Rather than speaking about retired Americans, it calls their demographic of change agents experienced Americans and reminds anyone who is silly enough to forget it that the 60 and over group has a substantial share of the country's assets. Green aging, as opposed to gray, means engaging in meaningful action to protect the environment. Volunteer with local parks, forest preserves, or conservation districts. If volunteering isn't your thing, consider installing heat pumps and/or solar panels. Cut down on your waste streams. Consider alternative modes of transportation. Reduce your carbon footprint. Plant trees. Utilize local businesses. Grow a garden. Above all else, get involved. Don't let a date on a calendar, a few gray hairs, or some wrinkles prevent you from being the best part of a solution to a dire problem.